So a little bit lighter. Um, so as typical, I try to get some topics to speak about from social media, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, and I've said before that sometimes you run out of stuff because it's always the same stuff, and I don't really want to get into politics. Not that I am anti-political, I just don't want to get into it on stream. Like I try to keep things light and positive to the best of my ability. And politically speaking, there's not a lot of nice, pleasant things to talk about. But and you'll also be surprised sometimes, but what people consider to be political, like basic human compassion, is a political topic these days. I don't know. Anyway, so one topic that's interesting that was raised on Threads that apparently, now this is the first time hearing about it from a post there, but apparently something that's going on recently that in large enough amounts, that large enough quantities that it's significant, is celebrities, established personalities starting to be like, oh, hey, I want to get on this streaming thing and jump into it. And, of course, they're bringing, an established market, an established audience in there. And so the question is, for those of us who are, nobodies, we're the common folk, been grinding at this for a while, months, a year, multiple years. I've been at this for a little bit over a year. I've been affiliated since March, which is going on 8 months, nearly 8 months. I've been affiliated. Not that it's the end all be all, but it's just kind of establishing, where I am, right now in terms of my growth. And when an established celebrity just, says, oh, I'm going to start streaming on Twitch, and they go live, and the first time they've ever gone live, they have a bunch of people show up. So the question that was posed was, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is it harmful to, us nobodies, or is it helpful, or is it nothing? Is it nothing to be concerned about? Is it everything to be concerned about? And it's an interesting topic because, I have my opinions, but I can see where, even if I disagree, I could see where they're coming from if somebody has an alternate opinion about, ultimately, my opinion is I think it's a good thing because primarily what it's doing is giving, it's giving more legitimacy to the platform. That's the big thing to me, is legitimacy to the platform, because it's, even though we talk about how saturated the streaming market is, the main reason for that is because everybody and their mother is able to stream. It's a lot easier these days than it was in the past. You just pull up your OBS, click start, and there you go, off and running. It's that easy. So anybody can do it, and everybody does it. So it feels saturated because it is, but it's also a very niche activity. So, there's those of us, we know what this is all about, obviously, but vast majority of people around you, probably, especially if it's an older crowd, 9 out of 10 have never heard of such a thing. They're like, what's a Twitch? So, what something like this can do is, it adds more legitimacy to such an activity, such a platform. Instead of everybody going, what's a Twitch? They're like, oh yeah, Twitch, what's your channel? Oh yeah, I signed up to watch this celebrity. What's your channel? So, that's if they know you, obviously. Not everybody's going to be browsing. So the question is, because most of the people going on just lurk, they're they're chosen people. So the question is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it harmful? My opinion is it's ultimately a good thing because it gives the platform a bit more structure, more legitimacy. Imagine, it doesn't have, we're not talking about an A-list celebrity because they've got a busy schedule and other things, but let's say it's like a B-list celebrity and they're on like a talk show. They've got, it's like, I've got this new project, a TV show, and also I stream on Twitch, and they start talking about Twitch, their channel, and the platform. And people who've never heard of it will be like, oh, hey, that sounds interesting. So it gives the it gives the platform a bit more legitimacy, and I ultimately think it's a good thing. Um, I could see, however, why somebody would take issue with it. Like some of the comments be like, "Well, that's not fair." I've been grinding for years, and this celebrity just signs on, and boom, they've got this big audience. But that's really no different to me than how it's always been. A lot of celebrities benefit from nepotism. So like they're related to somebody, or like they're like, especially if it's the offspring of an actor. Suddenly, like, Will Smith, and then what's the boy's name? Can't remember his name. His son, like his son suddenly, like, was A tier briefly just because Will Smith was popular, right? So a lot of people, have benefited from nepotism. There's exceptions to that, of course. There's those that started their career in the theater, such as Sir Ian McKellen. Um, if I if I didn't butcher it, um, so people who started in theater, they earned their way there. Uh, but some started with nepotism. Some got it through with nepotism, and you actually see the same thing in the streaming space. There's some streamers who just came out of nowhere, and they're streaming to hundreds, if not 1,000 or so, just because they are friends with somebody who's super popular and said, "Hey, this is my friend. You should go check them out." Suddenly, they got a huge platform from day one. So it's always been like that. Some people just luck into it. It's not a what you know to type of thing. So so the idea that somebody with an established audience would hop in and have 500 you know uh, on day one when they go live, that doesn't bother me, because it's always been like that. Whatever the case may be. So I don't see that as like an insult. The point is that I don't consider that to be an insult to those of us that have been, grinding this. Those of us, quote unquote, nobodies, just grinding. And uh, um, there's also the question is, does it help? Does it help aside from the legitimacy? Like, does it help us directly? Probably not. I mean, you would hope that some of them start to browse and start poking around and checking out other streamers. Reality is they probably won't. You know how I know a lot of people on Twitch, viewers on Twitch, they don't look past the front page. And this kind of leads to something else I saw, like last week, and it was on my mind going into a stream. I think it was Saturday stream, and I ultimately decided not to jump into it because like on its own, it's a little bit negative. But segueing into it, and it kind of relates to what I'm referring to with that, talking about celebrities and how some, a lot of viewers will primarily just look at the front page or look at like some big streamers. Like somebody on Threads was talking about how, well, first of all, I was complaining about viewers, lack of viewers, but on the subject of, how, what would your typical streamer have as an audience? And he was even arguing that, oh, well, you're tiny too. The average streamer has like 1,000 subs, and I couldn't. All I could do was laugh at that. Like, it's absurd. His idea of a quote small streamer is in that 30 to 60 range. But no, like 98%, actually more like 97% of streamers are under 10 viewers average. And that's just a reality. It is a lot of people are basically streamers themselves, and which is totally fine. But if you only look at the front page, you'll just see a bunch of big names, hundreds of viewers, thousands of viewers. And so you might get the wrong impression that, okay, there's only a few that actually matter. But, just like with somebody popping in just to watch a celebrity, or somebody who goes on just to watch, say, Queso or Iron Mouse or Kaisenat or Asmongold, some of these big names, which it's fine if that's what you want to watch. But people who go into that thinking, and there's people like this. There's people like this where they say, this individual has, several hundred people watching them. They must be worthwhile to watch. and oh, this other individual just streams themselves. Well, they're not worth watching because nobody's already watching them, and that's just simply not the case. I mean, there are going to be a lot of people just streaming themselves, and they're just not entertaining, and there's a reason why they don't get a lot of visitors. But there's a lot of people who are actively yapping to themselves, and in my opinion, I find in some cases, not all, because like I said, not everybody has like a quality setup, poor mic quality, or even not even speaking on mic, you know, they're just quietly playing the game. But if somebody's actively yapping to themselves, and they've can sometimes be more entertaining, in my opinion, than even a big streamer just quietly playing a game. There'll be big streamers with 100 viewers, and not always. Some of them are actively yapping and very entertaining, but there's some who are just quietly playing the game. And meanwhile, there's somebody else who's streaming to themselves for the most part, and they are just actively yapping the whole time. And the latter, I sometimes see as more entertaining. I see that's more entertaining. So the point is, there's a lot of, and part of this is, we could talk about discovery on Twitch, et cetera, et cetera. That it is a real problem. It's a real problem trying to get more exposure to people who actually deserve to, have the occasional visit. And, it helps, and they could gradually grow from there, but it helps to seed it, to at least have somebody, stop in, say hi. And this kind of leads back into my overall view on supporting other streamers. I'll go around and try to say hi to who I can. We're talking like go in, hang out for a few minutes, park for a while, and eventually move on. And try to say hi to at least several per evening. It can't be everywhere at once, but try to say hi to a lot of people because it's very meaningful. It sounds very small. It sounds very small. It sounds insignificant, but it really does mean a lot, especially to somebody who is used to just only hearing themselves talk and just doing their own thing, quiet chat box, and suddenly somebody pops in, says hi, puts a few words in there. Like, for people who aren't used to it, it's super meaningful. So, and that could help as a big motivator as well. Just showing somebody, hey, I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you, really helps with the motivation aspect. So that's my overall attitude with supporting other streamers, which of course leads into the whole Tiny Tubers thing. So Tiny Tubers is all about supporting tiny VTubers who, it gives more of an opportunity to have a little bit more of an exposure to people otherwise wouldn't see them. They don't have huge established audiences in many cases. Like I'll visit some, and sometimes they're like fringe partner level, maybe just barely partner level, but sometimes they're people more like me, where they'll sometimes have a few visitors, maybe upwards of 10 viewers. Some that have been around a little bit longer will hover in the teens somewhere. So nothing huge, but but every little bit helps, right? Like every bit of exposure shows, hey, this person exists, and you start to go check them out, start to visit people. So it's a very good way to, in my opinion, support other streamers by actively supporting this YouTube channel. It's in effect supporting what it's all about, which is helping exposure for these tiny tubers.